guys hear me? Yeah, okay. Good afternoon. I would like to thank everyone for joining us today to celebrate the life of Marian Eugenia Till. I'm Arne Anderson, and I'm married to Jean's granddaughter, Robin. And I was honored when I was asked to lead the service for Graham's celebration of life. To start, I would like to thank Sasha for beginning our service with a song on the piano. We would like to welcome our family and friends that are here today and those joining us virtually. A special mention to the family members who are with us in spirit: Lisa, James, Madeline, Natalie, Maya, Sasha, Chad, and Shyla. We acknowledge the Bridge Club ladies, who are the Honorary Pallbearers. We have June Flieger, Belle Dostal, Vera May William, Grace Hill, Jean O, Mary Cavanagh, Marge Natras, Shirley Aston, Elsie Cousins, Billy Lou King, Dot Hill, and Edith Card. Marian Eugenia Till, known to people gathered here today as Jean, Mom, Graham, Grammy, Gran, Grandma, or Gigi, was born on the Graham family farm situated near Arcola, Saskatchewan, to parents Ward Graham and Mary Hobson. After her mom's passing, Ward married Mary Gibney, and from that marriage, Beth, Susan, and Bill were born and became an important part of Jean's life. Jean and Bill began their life together on the family farm, just 2 miles north of Lloydminster. The birth of Rob, Bruce, Barb, and Margo completed the family unit, with each of them holding a special spot in the heart of their mom. Not only did Jean juggle demands of her children, but she managed the daily routines of establishing a comfortable home. She tended a huge vegetable garden, plucked and cleaned her fair share of chickens, spent hours after the family was asleep to sew a secret or perfect dress or costume, and served as a mother to many of her children's friends and a few strangers. Jean began working outside the home in the library at the Lloydminster Junior High School. It was a perfect position for her. She loved and respected her colleagues and was in the perfect position. It was a perfect position for her. She loved and respected her colleagues, and she was able to keep a finger on the pulse of what her three children were doing. When Bill decided to launch his own business, Jean was eager to be involved. Bill and Jean built Till Communications into a successful two-way radio communications business. They sold the business in 1985 and were able to retire early, enjoying about 40 years of post-career life. Both Bill and Jean remained very active in their community during those retirement years. Jean's contributions were impactful, but in true Jean fashion, were less obvious and out of the spotlight. Jean was one who quietly assisted others through her gift of time and patience. And I'm sure each of you have a memory of this, and we would love to hear your stories in the days and weeks to come. Jean was devoted to her family and especially loved to watch and hear stories about her grandchildren and great-grandchildren. Jean had a special bond with her grandmother, and I think it is safe to say that is why she developed such a strong relationship with her grandchildren and great-grandchildren. She loved to receive texts and photos, and given her challenge with hearing, she relied on skimming through messages she had received. Technology can be difficult to many, but Jean carefully navigated her iPhone to use text messaging to keep in touch with everybody. Jean was a caregiver to the very end. In fact, during her hospital stay, she frequently would blurt out a request for her family to call someone or to check in with someone else who may need help. Jean, you did your best for us. Now it is our turn to step up and do the best we can for others. Rest peacefully. You have taught us well. Today we will hear a number of tributes from those people close to Jean. First, we'll hear from Jean's daughters, Barb and Margo. So I'm going to welcome them up here to have a chat.
On behalf of our family, we thank you for joining us as we gather to remember and celebrate the indomitable Jean Till. As each of you well know, Jean was one of a kind. Over the next few minutes, my sister Barb and I would like to share with you some of the traits that made her the person that she was.
So, in the spirit of her beloved Sound of Music, here are a few of her favorite things. Family. Mom and Dad were married just a few weeks shy of 70 years. They complemented one another, opposites in some way, but very alike in others. One of the greatest gifts that they gave their children was to demonstrate what it meant to have a truly equal partnership. Neither shied away from robust debate, and each enjoyed the other's quick wit and repartee. Their love language was their own. Not long before our dad passed away, Mom had been out for the day, coffee, I think, with some of you ladies. When she returned home, she said lovingly, "Hi, sweetie, I missed you. How was your day?" Well, Dad sat up a little straighter in his chair until I had to break the news to him that Mom was speaking to Charlie, her beloved cat. Joking aside, on Dad's 90th birthday, Mom brought us to tears when she expressed her love to him, saying, "Without you, Bill, none of this would have been possible." Mom had an individual, independent relationship with each of her 4 children and their spouses. They were all deep and meaningful, and they were different. We were respected as individuals, and no one of us was more important than the other. Friends. Mom was friends with everyone, from the Zamboni driver to the folks at Tim's, some of whom she knew by name and many more she didn't, but maybe pretended she did. As kids, we would often have friends dropping by the house, or one of us would be told to call ahead of time to one of Mom's friends to tell them to put the coffee on. We'd be right over. In the past few days, we have heard from many people who have been a part of Mom's or our family's story for decades. We and she cherish those memories.
Animals. Andrea worded this beautifully in saying she tended to so many beings. Cats, dogs, birds, rabbits, horses, fish, turtles, and lizards were among the many representatives from the animal kingdom that she loved and protected. Our mother liked cats. Cats liked our mother, including cats who belonged to other people. They would wander into the yard, or they'd be brought home by one or another of us, and they'd stay for the next 15 years or so. Like her kids, her pets sometimes got into trouble, like the time that Bog the dog ate the entire roast beef dinner that was sitting on the counter resting. That wasn't a good day. Her human family and her animal family were on pretty even ground. On days when she was driving me here or there, I knew I had a 50-50 chance of getting the front seat if Lady, our German Shepherd, made it there first. As a young girl, Mom made it clear to her own dad that it would be a horse that she would ride to school and not a bike. Food. If the way to one's heart is through their stomach, I think every person in this room can say that they were loved by Jean. There was a running joke in the family that the last man in was the one responsible for cleaning up the leftovers, and in this, Mom was ruthless. We became very adept at managing our portions in order to save space for second, third, and fourth helpings. Recipes are our family's currency, and we will be forever grateful for this legacy she left us.
Reading. We came by our love of reading honestly. Both Mom and Dad loved it and would often steal one another's books. It is a family trait. If you ever receive a book from one of us, you can pretty much be assured that it has already been read. She was also cutthroat at Scrabble, engaging in, shall we say, rigorous debate with Dad about whether the word one of them had proposed was in fact a real word. Dad printed a crossword for her every day, and this is something she much missed in the months following his passing. Commercial crossword books didn't cover it. Puzzles had to be Dad approved. Bridge. Bridge was more than a hobby. It was a way of life. Jean was a fierce card player and was highly competitive. The ladies who are here today will remember her as a skilled opponent. Many a phone call with her started with, "Did you win the money, Mom?" At this time, we would like to take a moment to apologize for Mom's infidelity with the various clubs by playing with different clubs on every day of the week. Shout out to the Monday Club, the Tuesday Club, the Wednesday Club, and the Thursday Club. Plants. From that amazing garden to the carefully curated solarium in her house, Jean's skills and knowledge in plant and tree identification and care were unparalleled. She frequently gave others advice on gardening, including the landscapers that she'd hired to help her. And even earlier this year was found underneath that large spruce tree in her front yard, trimming branches with her hefty new clippers while Charlie paced up and down the sidewalk, meowing and alert. He knew that she wasn't supposed to be there under the tree and was calling her out. Mom would plant, and equally, Charlie would unplant. Along with this list of her favorite things, there are some very notable traits that set Mom apart. Compassion was Jean Till's hallmark. Everyone was welcome at our mother's table. One day on the farm, a man knocked at the door. We didn't know him, but he was walking along the highway, saw the farm, and stopped in. He told Mom he was hungry. He was invited to join the family at the table, and he ate until he'd had his fill. That was just who Jean was. She worked in palliative care, sitting by the side of many people in their final hours. She would drive folks to appointments in Edmonton and Saskatoon before there were other transport options to support this need. She drove people to church and was very skilled in wrangling oxygen tanks and wheelchairs in and out of her car. And there is more.
Jean had a passion for politics. Now, we won't get into details, but suffice to say that our parents were political animals. We had many spicy conversations. Mom took the right to vote very seriously and worked many provincial and federal elections to ensure that everyone's voice was heard. In 2012, our parents were recognized as Lloydminster Citizens of the Year. We were proud of them then, and we are proud of them now. Her sense of humor was legendary. She was an outright prankster. And back in the day, the Weir Veterinary Clinic was definitely a target for her humor. There was a Jean Till initiation process for any new vet. There were also gifts that kept on giving. Some ugly ceramic chickens made the rounds for years, exchanged between friends in carefully wrapped boxes. The coup de grace was when she arranged for a beautiful package to be delivered by taxi to the restaurant where Glenn and Kelly Weir were celebrating a milestone anniversary. After much fanfare, they opened the package to reveal none other than the infamous chickens. It was hard to catch Glenn unawares, and I'm looking at Bobby. And Mom was very proud of herself that day. Her wedding shower skits were another specialty, and there will be many former brides who will remember the hijinks at their own wedding showers. Each play was individually prepared for the bride and required advanced thespian skills from anyone else that she or Kelly Weir could rope into participating. For someone who was so close to so many people, Mom had a very high threshold for privacy. It was at their peril that a telephone solicitor would try to extract personal details from her. In fact, in our meeting with McCaws to discuss these final arrangements, Bruce was mindful of her wishes to the end and requested confirmation of the CRA number to ensure that her social insurance number was being appropriately safeguarded. You will also note that at Mom's request, in the memorial card, her birth date is indicated as NOYB. And in case that isn't clear, that stands for none of your business. You can expect the same on her headstone. Mom believed in the importance of accepting responsibility for one's own actions. She was strong, she was independent, and she had great presence of mind. She had an absolute certainty about her own destiny, and as her family, she had our full respect and support. She knew what was best for her, and she took the time and care to ensure that we all did as well. In reminiscing together, longtime family friend Jeff Mulligan commented that Jean had the rare ability to, as he said, lead from the back. Our mom and dad have always been leaders amongst their peers. In death, as in life, our mom stood strong in her convictions and knew her own path with certainty. In exercising her legislated right to medical assistance in dying, Mom was steadfast. Her last wish was to share her story with others so that they too could be fully informed on this most personal of decisions. Until the end of her life, she was thinking of others, reflected in her last words, "Take care of the doctor." Mom, your legacies will live on in your family and friends. We are all the better for knowing you. Nighty-night, Mom.
Thank you, Barb and Margo. I would like to ask Uncle Bruce to come forward and read a note that Jean prepared for her bridge club. And he will follow that with a note from Jean's daughter-in-law, Lisa Adams.
Hi, folks. Thanks very, very much for coming. This is a note that my mother dictated to me on the morning of September 15th, 2022, room 331 of the Lloydminster Hospital. I had intended to read it exactly as she dictated it to me, and I have since learned that I owe a big word of thanks to the Bridge Club. They pointed out an error that Mom definitely would not have wanted me to say. So, for Jean's Bridge Club, dear friends, for some days I've been trying to deal with how to tell you what is happening. When it was determined by many texts and by very competent people that a cure was not available, after all, old is old, you can't fix that. So being, as you all know, sound of mind, I have decided it is time to go. Assistance is available. I feel fortunate to be able to tell my friends what a comfort and relief it has been to be able to make this choice. I'm not certain what day this is to be, but it will be soon. All arrangements have been made. I want you to all know how much I appreciate your understanding about being unable to take or return phone calls. Grand slams to each of you. From Jean. The next piece I want to read is a poem called Sleeping in the Forest by Mary Oliver, and I was extremely touched to hear that Andrea had chosen the same author, a different poem by the same author to read today. Sleeping in the Forest. I thought the earth remembered me. She took me back so tenderly, arranging her dark skirts, her pockets full of lichens and seeds. I slept as never before, a stone on the riverbed. Nothing between me and the white fire of the stars but my thoughts, and they floated light as moths, among the branches of the perfect trees. All night I heard the small kingdoms breathing around me, the insects and the birds who do their work in the darkness. All night I rose and fell as if in water, grappling with a luminous doom. By morning, I had vanished at least a dozen times into something better. My wife added a note. She said, "I will miss you, dear Jean. Please remember me to the stars. Know the joys, love, tears, and sorrow of those you now leave behind will build a bridge to the next world for your crossing. May your crossing be swift and easy. Know that your ancestors and all those you loved who went before you eagerly await your arrival. Goodbye, beloved mother and grandmother, from Lisa and my children, James and Madeline." Thank you.
Thank you, Uncle Bruce. Next, I would like to welcome forward Jean's siblings, Susan, Beth, and Bill.
I see these things haven't shrunk any. Good afternoon. My name is Beth Wager. I wrote that down just in case that I would forget who I was when I got up here. I'm speaking on behalf of the Graham family, my sister Susan and my brother Bill. Susan and Bill don't have any children, but I had 5 just to make up for that. And they loved our Jean too. My daughter Louise is here with us, and so is my husband Marian. Susan and Bill have asked me to share their special memories, so I'll just read what they have written down here. Growing up, Jean was the older, this is what from Susan. Growing up, Jean was the older sister we did not see often as we lived a distance apart. As we became adults, she became the destination, the reason to travel. We became close to Jean to share stories with, to enjoy each other's company, and to have some good laughs. I remember I was in Lloyd visiting when the provinces celebrated their centennials with a hockey game. The power went out, so Jean, to ensure I wasn't cold, served me one of Bill's scotch in front of the fireplace, and then piled so many blankets on me I couldn't even roll over. But I wasn't cold. I remember shopping in Edmonton with Jean, and she suggested a break in a little bar. That's where she introduced me to blueberry tea. She shared that secret with many others, so then in our circles, it's now referred to as Auntie Jean's tea. I remember another trip to Edmonton to shop with Jean and Barb, and shop we did. On the way home, we saw the most glorious northern lights. Before I left in the morning, Jean whipped out her sewing machine and shortened the sleeves of my new blazer. I remember when they lived at the coast and I visited. We were with Tori and Diane and her family. We were sitting in the yard one very hot day and we noticed little burn marks on the cedar patio table and could not come up with any explanation. Then I moved my glass and we spotted a poof of smoke. The crystal in the glass was causing a little fire on the table. I will always have a piece of Jean because she sewed me a beautiful quilt. Every night I curl up under it and she keeps me warm. And Bill remembers. I remember when Jean would come home for a visit, and just the two of us would drive around the South Arcola community, identifying who lived where and reminiscing about the people. One of my favorite recent memories was when Jean put on a birthday celebration for my 60th birthday. One summer before we had our place, Jean brought her kids down and she rented a cottage at White Bear Lake and included Susan and me. Another time, she and her family spent time there. Rob and Bruce had a pet chameleon, if you can call a chameleon a pet, and he got away, never to be found. Thanks for sharing those memories. Jean played a special part in our family, technically our half-sister, but much more, so much more. When we were growing up in the 50s, leaving the farm in an older vehicle for a 750-kilometer trip was quite an adventure. At least Susan, Bill, and I saw it as an adventure. I remember coming to Bill and Jean's farm one winter just as it was getting dark. Jean came flying out of the house in her bare feet. She was so welcoming, and we were so happy to see her. My dad was glad to be there too, mostly because the car wasn't completely reliable. The generator, yes, the generator, had quit and the headlights were rapidly fading. Both he and our mom loved their visits with Jean and her family. Our mom was Jean's stepmother, but really they were just friends. Jean was her bridesmaid, and they had a unique relationship and love of each other. Jean frequently made the trip to Arcola and was an integral part of our lives. Then she became part of my kids' lives. She came to their weddings, and one Easter, not that long ago, around 2008, she brought a carload of chocolate, the good kind, for Easter. Barb was my flower girl when I was married in 1967. My bridesmaids ordered their dresses from the catalog. Again, age is showing. Jean ordered the same one, and she used it as a model to make a matching one for Barb. She was so talented. Sewing, knitting, handwork, gardening, cooking. She could and did do everything. She was such a role model for me. I lived with the Tills in 1965 when I attended Reeves Business College. If they hadn't opened their home to me, I don't know if I would have had a post-secondary education. I am so grateful. I'm grateful that I had Jean for a sister. She meant the world to me. Rest in peace, my dear. The Graham family love you.
And now, we'd like to invite lifetime family friend Bobby Weir on behalf of the Weir family.
Well, I know that the Till family's all IT, and I said this to them yesterday, so I've got old school handwriting. And I think Jean would expect it and want me to be like this. So anyways, I feel very honored to have been asked to say a few words. The allotted time is up to 5 minutes, and Jean wants this wrapped up in an hour, so I got to speed up here. My mom and Jean were best friends, and I've never known a time when Jean wasn't in my life. I'd come home from Australia every summer, and she'd make me a whole tray of Nanaimo bars to myself. And every year, my brother would say the same thing, "Oh, I don't much like Nanaimo bars," and the next thing you know, half a tray was gone. And, that's the way it went every year. So pumpkin pies were made for me, and I'd look forward to them for 12 months, and once again, I'd get them to myself. So every year, she never let me down. 3 years ago, I decided it was time. I had to learn how to make Jean's pastry. Barb said, "Great." She said, "You can teach me." At the time, I sort of knew this probably was going to be a once-off thing. I was not capable of passing these skills on. Sorry, Barb, you're going to have to, I don't know what, but I found the whole process difficult and very, very stressful. And just at the end, Bill walks in and he goes, "How's it going, Jean?" And she said, "Well, I've never taught anybody who's challenged before." So that, again, was typical Jean. Jean and my mom were famous for their wedding showers, which were always full of comedy skits, poems, and songs that they had written. They always served white wine to get the crowd sort of loosened up before they performed. I happened to be in the kitchen in our home one day just before one of these events, and they'd served a round of wine, and then Jean came in and she goes like, "This is a tough crowd, Kelly." So they looked at each other, and before you knew it, the glasses were topped up with vodka. And the next morning, a lot of women in Lloydminster wondered why they had headaches. My dad, Glenn Weir, hired many South African veterinarians over the year, and it was Jean who always initiated them to Canada and the Weir Vet Clinic. 5 years ago, when I was visiting South Africa, I happened to meet up with one of these guys, and he had published a book, and Jean was in one of the chapters. So this is how it goes. So the first day, this poor South African veterinarian was at the clinic, and they'd invited him. He was there, morning coffee, and everybody brought their significant others, but he didn't get invited to bring his. So he thought that was a bit odd. That was his first warning sign. So then, shortly after, they call him to the exam room. Thought that was a bit odd because he didn't have any of his own clients yet. So that was his second warning sign. He was met with a scraggly, middle-aged woman with soiled clothes and a grimy face and a broad Scottish accent. In her grubby hand, she had a gunny sack, and within it, a very dead, decomposed rabbit that stunk to high heaven. She insisted it was fine last night. It still had lots of hop left in it then. There was to be a postmortem, and Jean said she was staying if there was a postmortem. She was going to be in on it. But then all of a sudden, she said, I don't like your attitude, and I want to see Glenn. So he left to get help with this crazy, stupid client, which were his words exactly in the book, only to find that the clinic was laughing their heads off. Dad removed Jean's wig and said, meet our dear friend Jean Till. The vet told me that he never lived that prank down. Over the years, Jean had many stellar Academy Award-winning performances. She was like a second mom to me. Her positivity and encouragement helped me throughout my entire life. I was very fortunate the last 6 weeks to have many visits with Jean. But at one point, I just started crying, and Oprah would call it an ugly cry. Jean stated it wasn't allowed in this room, and I explained to her that I'm a foreigner and can do whatever I like. Over all our visits, we shared stories about Mom. She was so happy and peaceful, and I told Jean she was a trailblazer. I said, how is it that a 94-year-old has less wrinkles than I do? Jean, you were one heck of a woman and a role model, especially in the fashion sense. On one last note now, Charlie is Jean's cat, and I always thought he was a one-woman cat, and he certainly didn't like me. A few days ago, Barb, Bruce, and Margo were discussing that Charlie would need a new home. They thought of a couple of options, one being that they could have an Oprah-style giveaway show, and please don't do this now. They could come in and say, are you ready? Are you really ready? Well, reach under your seat, and if you have a cat sticker, you're taking Charlie home. Or they could have a cat lottery. You could pick up a number as you entered, and Charlie would be raffled off. But then they found out that cat lotteries were totally illegal in Alberta. Oh, dear Jean, I'm just over 5 minutes, 24 seconds. Love you, gotta go.
A few of Jean's grandchildren and great-grandchildren will share memories today. First, we have Andrea with a recording. Next, Robin will come, followed by myself. And finally, we will have Allie come up.
You do not have to be good. You do not have to walk on your knees for 100 miles through the desert repenting. You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. Tell me about despair, yours, and I'll tell you mine. Meanwhile, the world goes on. Meanwhile, the sun and the clear pebbles of the rain are moving across the landscapes, over the prairies and the deep trees, the mountains and the rivers. Meanwhile, the wild geese, high in the clean blue air, are heading home again. Whoever you are, no matter how lonely, the world offers itself to your imagination, calls to you like the wild geese, harsh and exciting, over and over, announcing your place in the family of things. Wild Geese by Mary Oliver, and I'm Andrea, Jean's grandchild.
All my life, I truly believed that Graham was going to live forever. I mean, obviously, I knew how life works, and knew that it was an insane belief, but I never thought that this day would actually come. She was always there for me. How could she suddenly just not be? She was there for every Wednesday night supper when I was a kid, every birthday, every holiday, graduations, and my wedding. She was always up for a coffee date and for baby snuggles. She could fix anything and make everything from clothing to food and everything in between. She knew the name of every flower, bush, plant, bird that exists. And you better believe that she definitely knew every cat, bunny, and bird by name that she'd made up that was in her neighborhood. She celebrated winning big at bridge and visiting with her friends every week at coffee. Graham made me realize very regularly that I have zero fashion sense because she always looked way more stylish than me. She also taught me the phrase, "Oh, that old thing?" which was often used to ensure Granddad didn't know that she'd bought another new outfit. Oh, and by the way, just in case you were wondering, I had to pull this old dress out of the back of my closet because there was no way that I would ever go out and buy a new outfit for this occasion. I think that my new phrase might be, Graham would want me to have this. Graham could comfort me in seconds with her ever so gentle back rubs. One of the many reasons I would fight to sit beside her at dinner After supper, if I leaned forward slightly on the table, she would reach over and start rubbing my back, and I would do everything in my power to not move for fear that she would stop. She was one of the strongest, healthiest, funniest, wisest, and stylish people I know, right up until her last day with us. During my last visit with her, we laughed and told stories. I cried even though she insisted that we don't do that in here. Although she's not physically here with us, I'm so thankful to have had her be a part of so many milestones and events in my life. It will undoubtedly be hard to come to Lloyd and not stop at Grandma and Granddad's house for a visit or to have family supper and have an empty chair at the table. I have peace in my mind knowing that I have a lifetime of memories that will last forever.
Unlike many of the grandchildren, my relationship with Graham started when I was much older. I met Graham in the spring of 2014, and I remember it like it was yesterday. She wanted a Caesar. I mixed her a Caesar. She liked the Caesar, and we've been best friends ever since. As our friendship blossomed over the years, many of our conversations revolved around different types of flowers, shrubs, trees, ponds, animals, and eventually grew talking about her great-grandchildren, and finally, I had the courage to ask her how to deal with her moody granddaughter. As some would say, our relationship was short but sweet, but to me it was much more. Moving from South Africa in 1997 meant leaving our family behind, and I grew up not knowing my grandparents or family. As I got to know the Weeb family, I always loved watching the interactions between Graham and her children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. It was and still is a perfect family, and it would not have been the same without you, Graham. Graham, you have and will always be an amazing grandma, and I will never forget you and the love you have for your family. Robin and I will always talk about the commitment and time you and Granddad put towards your family. You have set the bar high, and we hope to do the same with ours.
I remember when Tutu took me and Nolan to Gigi's, and she gave us a big bag of jelly beans, and we picked out the ones she liked and gave them to her, and she let us take the rest home, and we ate all of them except the black ones that are disgusting. I don't know what happened to them, but they have now disappeared. I remember when we had supper at Gigi's, and it was delicious, unlike black jelly beans, and she made cake, and Dad said not a lot of cake, but when Dad left, Gigi gave us the biggest slice of cake and ice cream. Me and Nolan wanted a dog for a while, and one day at brunch, we had Gigi and Tutu and a bunch of people in our family, and we had then told Gigi about it, and Gigi called Dad a bad dad because he wouldn't let us have a dog. She said when she was little she had a dog and a horse, and we got Cooper the day after. I remember when me and Nolan went to Tutu and Papa's, and we were going to have a sleepover, but when we were going on a bike ride, and Tutu fell and hurt herself badly, so Papa dropped us off at Gigi's, and they went to the ER, and we ended up sleeping over at Graham's for the night. She gave us all the candy you can think of and said we could stay up as long as we wanted. So we made a fort out of pillows and blankets and watched TV for a long time. When Tutu and Papa came to get us in the morning, Gigi and me and Nolan were asleep on the floor. She spoiled us a lot. Gigi loved when me and Nolan played piano, so today Tutu will play a piece that we played at Music Festival. One time when we were playing cards at Tutu's, the whole family was there, and my team won because I laid down the winning card. Gigi called me a smart brat. She was very, very funny and stubborn. She loved us and always will. Love, Ellie.
Next, we will hear a musical piece by great-grandson Nolan Weeb, followed by great-granddaughter Ellie Weeb. After that, the family has prepared a photo tribute to Jean with music provided by Sasha. And finally, Bruce will come and share a poem.
Hi, my name is Nolan Weave and I'll be playing Strike Back. I'll be playing A Spoonful of Sugar.
One last poem, folks. This poem is called Do Not Stand at My Grave and Weep. It's been attributed or claimed authorship by several people over the years. I have chosen the version by Claire Harner. Do not stand by my grave and weep. I am not there. I do not sleep. I am the thousand winds that blow. I am the diamond glints in snow. I am the sunlight on ripened grain. I am the gentle autumn rain. As you awake with morning's hush, I am the swift upflinging rush of quiet birds in circled flight. I am the day transcending soft night. Do not stand by my grave and cry. I am not there. I did not die.
Thank you for that poem, Bruce. Jeez. Now, having said that, I better wrap this up. As mentioned before, we are operating under strict instructions by Jean to draw this up in no less than an hour. I can kind of picture her if she was to be here. She'd sit there, try and catch my eye, and do this. So that's true, Jean. So before we draw this celebration to a close, the family would like to thank the following people. On behalf of Jean's family and Jean herself, thank you all for joining us today. Thank you to Dr. Curlis and for his many years of friendship and support. Thank you also to the caregivers and medical team at the Lloydminster Hospital and to MAID Saskatchewan. Our appreciation to McCaw Funeral Service for their care and attention. Special thanks to her beloved cat, Charlie. You took good care of her. Please consider a donation in memory of Jean to Border Paws Animal Shelter, previously the Lloydminster and District SPCA, in lieu of flowers. A parting disclaimer from the family: if there have been any errors or omissions during the service, the responsibility lies with us as family. Specifically, if you see Marian with an O or Marian with an A, know that you are not alone with your confusion. Jean actually had a legal document created to reflect that she is one person, is one and the same person. We hope that you will all join us at the Royal Hotel immediately following the service for lunch. We're all heading there now. Thank you all for your love and support. Thanks.